Malta was part of Britain, and because it's such a strategic point for North Africa, North Africa was a big. We were really, we were kind of had guns all over the island. You see, and during the war, you had what we call attack guns, and there was a station where you had about 6 guns in a go, one here, 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 all over the place, around the error room, where the fighters would be, where the enemy would come and attack, and they would try to knock them down. But they would come during the day and during the night, and and we had more bombs dropped in Malta than they did in London during the course of the war. Okay, but so you say, how did you survive? The reason we survived because the buildings, they are not, they're built of stone, big stones, which are actually carved from the quarries of Malta itself. So they were tough buildings to knock, okay? But nonetheless, there were places that were devastated and destroyed, but especially by the harbour where the navy was stationed, the bombs used to come to, and where the ships came in with food, they would bomb the ships to sink the food, because we were at a starving situation for many, many months, many, many years, 2 years. It was a siege for 2 years that the food was very hard to bring in during the war. So there were rations, which I have to come back in a minute, where I was employed by the government as a scout messenger. And that was 42, so that would make me 12 years, right? I was 10 at 39, it was me 13 years. It was makes me 13 years. My brothers, we were all involved in scouting. Every one of us were very involved in scouting. Yeah. So my scout master, he said, so there were these protections offices where the government created these offices in each town. So whenever food came in, if it survived and came in and was taken ashore, somebody works out and say, this is what we have, this is what we have, and this is what each family could take. They would do the mathematics of that, and they decide. So there was a protection office, a food office, which was also called a protection office, and any food that came in, we would have food books, and the head office say, right, each family would take so much depending on how big the family is per person, you see. So my job, I was employed by the government as a scout messenger, and I would go to the head office. They supplied me with a bike, which was far too big for me. I was really a titch. I was still a titch, but I was even smaller then. And this bike, I had to pedal on the front. I couldn't do it from the seat. I had to get off the seat to pedal. I had to go up the hill and go to the head office and get the information and tell the people in charge at the office, and then we decide what the family decide what they're gonna get, you see. And then I would go to all the shops, whether it would be a baker, a grocery. We're not talking about supermarkets now. We're talking about small family shops, you see, like you have across the street here. And I would say, I would give you a piece of paper and they say, you go and get the food from this distributor, and then, you give so much to each family, and you mark their book, make sure nobody cheats or anything like that. If you cheated in food, you end up in prison. A lot of people that dealt with black market in Malta, even nice people, because it was very tempting, you see, and make black market or sold or even gave food that you're not allowed to, they throw you in prison. Our next door neighbor, who were very nice family people, their dad ended up in prison because he gave flour away to people he wasn't supposed to. So my job was to go to each, I knew every shop in town, every shop, every baker, every shop, everything, and I would go and give him a little note and tell him, this is what you do, go and get the food, and this is how much you give to the people. And so that lasted for a long time. So I was employed from 1942 to 1948 for 6 years, because even though the war was over in 45, rationing still existed till 46, 47. It was then when finally enough quantity was coming in fast enough by the ships to supply the people, because meat and flour had to come from overseas, you see, oils, olives, things like that. They came from Italy and whatever, But a lot of convoys were trying to come in the harbour, but the enemy would bomb them and they go down in the sea and get wasted, and a lot of the ships, the Mediterranean sank in that way. So that went on for a long time. So the bottom line is that many children like me went to bed hungry, night after night, after night, after night, after night, for months and years, for a couple of years. And that is probably part of me not being so tall, because, if you're not eating when you are in your teens, that's when you notice teens, you see them a week after, and they are a few inches taller. But if you don't get enough food, of course, then your system cannot grow. You see, so that affected a lot of young men of my age in the war.